on Boston Praise Radio and TV made contributions this week. Some blessed people made contributions to and for our radio and TV station. And every contribution that comes into the station helps us to keep the lights on. Let me say it again. Every contribution that comes into the station helps us to keep the lights on and pay the bills. If we were just an internet radio station, our bills and responsibilities would be much smaller than they are now. But when you add the FM signal and you have to conform to all the FCC rules regarding licenses and antennas and renting space to put the antenna, all of this causes us to have to raise and have additional money in order for us to stay on the air. So we're looking forward to you helping us to foot the bill here on Boston Praise Radio and TV and Boston Black News. As you know, Boston Black News is heard exclusively here on every Friday starting at the 8 o'clock hour, 8 to 9, 9 to 10. It's Brother Ron Bell. It's Brother James Levesque. It is Leon Rock all the way from Washington, D.C. And these men, and we're looking for some women to join the team. And we'll be bringing different women on to our radio and TV network so that we can hear them live on the air, give you a chance to hear them, and then we'll decide which one of these young ladies will be joining the Boston Black News team. So I really feel on the inside we're not as together yet as I want us to be. We don't have it all together. I was saying somebody wants to have an event here at the church, and I was talking to them last night, and I said, it's one thing for us to do Boston Praise Radio and TV downstairs in the studio, but when you go up to the main sanctuary of the church and you do the same thing, it's more challenging, let's say, because we're not in the studio. If we were to take Boston Praise Radio and TV off-site, it would be even more challenging because we'll have to transport all of our equipment, all of our sound, our lights. It's just a major job. And unfortunately, nobody who's part of Boston Black News is being paid right now. We are not paying people for their time. Most people who are here volunteer their time on Boston Praise Radio and TV and Boston Black News. Most people do. And so I'm hoping, I'm actually believing that we are going to continue the growth that we are experiencing. One of the things that I mentioned live on the air is that when you walk into Boston Praise Radio and TV, the front entrance of our studio needs repair. Right now we are actually repairing one of the main rooms here in the church, and as soon as that's done this week, we're going to start on the front entrance of the church is going to be renovated. And so the front entrance of the radio and TV station needs work. Let me say it again. The front entrance of the radio and TV station needs some work. I do not know how much it will cost to have it renovated. We haven't brought any people in to have that conversation with them, but it needs repair. I don't like having people coming in and seeing the condition of the front entrance. So it's going to become a priority for us to work on it. It's going to become a priority for us to make sure that the front entrance of Boston Praise Radio and Boston Black News is going to be upgraded. I want to welcome Lauren and McLean Britt to Boston Praise Radio and TV. And so this morning, with two mayoral candidates coming in, it's the second time that we've had John Barrows here. And I've been receiving calls from mayoral candidates and city council candidates requesting to be on the station. And we're going to bring them all on. Unfortunately, we're trying to sync up the schedules between those who want to be on and the staff that I have here at the station, and it always doesn't sync up. But we believe it's important that we bring these candidates into the studio and give you a chance to see them and hear them. We want you to see and hear what they have to say. This is going to be a major campaign that people across the country are going to be watching if Boston will finally elect its first black mayor. Now, it's my understanding that we do not have any Caucasians, any white brothers or sisters in the race. All of the people who are in the race as of this moment are saying that they're people of color. And so right now, history is actually being made right now. We have a mayor that was sworn in, Mayor Kim Janey. I got to get used to saying that. Mayor Kim Janey was sworn in because Mayor Marty Walsh, the former mayor, has left to work with the Biden administration. And so Kim Janey, a black woman, is now the mayor of the city. Some people call her the acting mayor. They call her their acting mayor. There's nothing acting about what she's doing. Kim Janey is the mayor of the city of Boston, and she is going to be leading and providing the support that our city needs to move our city forward. And so Mayor Kim Janey has not declared that she is going to run for office. She's busy learning the ropes, right? She is busy learning the ropes here in her city, so that if she decides to declare that she's running for mayor of Boston, she will be ready to step in. And I'm actually looking forward to this race because we want to challenge all of these candidates to go beyond the rhetoric. We want to challenge the candidates to tell us, to let us know what it is that they plan to do. So you have Michelle Wu, who is a city councilor. She's running for mayor. You have Andrea Campbell, who's a city councilor. She's running for mayor. You have Anissa Asabi George. She's running for mayor. You have State Rep John Santiago. He's running for mayor. And also John Barrows, and he's running for mayor. So it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 candidates are running, and we are going to be looking at these candidates because we want to determine whether or not these candidates, any one of these candidates, qualify and are the people that we want to run this city. Now, let me make a couple of statements that will probably get make some of you very upset, but I'm going to say it anyway. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who becomes mayor for me as it relates to color. Yes, I would like to see a black person run for mayor of Boston and win. I would like to have a black person. But having just a black person, just to have a black face in office, isn't the answer. I want somebody who is going to be effective, who is going to be able to touch the lives of all of us in the city. So if that's a black person, I want a black person. If it's a Caucasian, I'll take a Caucasian. If it's a Spanish-speaking person, I want somebody who's going to be able to touch all of us in Boston. The last couple of mayors in our city started out okay, but then they got their little clique and wouldn't let anybody else in. And if you made any disparaging remarks about these mayors, you would pay a price. And so I want us to have a mayor that we will not have to make any disparaging remarks about. We want a mayor who understands how to manage the budget. We want a mayor who understands the cultural diversity of our city and will speak to it. We want a mayor who will be effective on the issue of fighting crime at the street level and fighting crime and corruption in their own administration. We want a mayor who is going to provide and make sure that black people have their fair share of contracts in the construction industry. We, and I'm sure that Priscilla and Brother Lowe are going to talk about it this morning, we received a minimal percentage, small percentage of the contracts here in the city of Boston. Black people were not a priority. When you look at the construction sites, you see white contractors doing a lot of the building. Black contractors have not been given the fair share of contracts. So we want a mayor that's finally going to live up to all the things that they said they were going to do. I'm going to say it again. We want a mayor that will live up to all that they said they are going to do. We are sick and tired. I'm going to say it again. We are sick and tired of having mayors make promises to us and then only to renege once they win the election and they go into office. And so we want to change. And I'm hoping that you also want to change. A number of people have met with Mayor Kim Janey and have had discussions with her about what they would like to have in a mayor. So I'm hoping that Mayor Kim Janey is listening to all of the people who have met with her and talked with her and have expressed what the needs are here in the city of Boston. And I'm hoping and I'm believing that she is going to be able to meet the needs of all of the citizenry here in the city of Boston. So let me say this. If Mayor Kim Janey is effective, it's going to be very hard for any of the other 5 candidates to catch the mayor of the city of Boston once she's been in office for 6 to 7 to 8 months prior to the election. So I'm looking forward. I am looking forward to this election because I think that something is about to happen in our city. Let me say it again. I think that something is about to happen in our city. And I'm planning to sit with the mayor of the city of Boston and to have a conversation with her about the needs as I see them, in hopes that of the mayor taking some of my suggestions as to how this city should be run. One of the reasons why so many people make a decision to run for an office is because the candidates, when they were running for office, made certain campaign pledges. They did. Then, once they walked into office, they changed their positions. Once they became mayor of the city of Boston, they were no longer attentive to all of us who were speaking with them, who voted for them. One of the worst things that can happen is that you vote for a mayor, that mayor goes and wins the office, and once they're in the office, they change their position. That is so frustrating. They no longer pick up the phone and respond to you. They only respond to people who say yes to them. They no longer will respond to people who challenge them. And so I'm hoping that Mayor Janey is not going to be that type of elected official. I'm hoping, I'm believing that Mayor Janey is going to be able to respond to all of us. Lauren Ann McLean Britt said this is a very pivotal mayoral election. This has to be really be a point of prayer and fasting for the believers. I agree with that, and I also agree that the churches alone, that the church community could have significant impact. The Roman Catholic churches, the Protestant churches, the Muslim mosque, if we came together as people of faith and said, we want to have impact on the mayoral election, we may be able to determine who wins the race. So, people of faith, I agree with what Lauren said. I believe that we should be praying about this. I believe that we should be meeting and caucusing about this. I believe that we should develop a religious coalition of people coming together and educating their congregations as to who these candidates are and also who they think could win this race. And so I'm gearing up. I'm starting to study these various candidates. I'm going to read up on their platforms. I'm going to have conversations with them. Right now, I am interested in having a conversation with Andrea Campbell because she asked if I would do that, and my response is yes. Michelle Wu wants to have a conversation with me, so I'm going to have that conversation. And I'm waiting for the other three candidates, Anissa Asabi George, State Rep John Santiago, and John Barrows. I'm waiting to have an audience with the three of them, and then I'll have my audience, in essence, with all five of them. But you have to also be concerned. Let me also express this thought. Years ago, candidates running for office in the city of Boston would make sure that they went to the local churches. They made sure they went to the local churches so that they could speak to the congregations. And I think that that's one of the correct things to do. Respect the churches and go and have a conversation with the members of those churches or mosques or parishes. But what's different now that we didn't experience years ago is that many of the members in these local churches no longer live in Boston. They used to live in Boston, but they no longer live in the city of Boston. And so my concern is that the elected officials will come in thinking that everybody in that church is from the local community. But they're going to find out that many people in those churches live outside of the city of Boston. In some churches, half of the people no longer live in the city of Boston. Half of those people no longer live in the community. A majority of them live outside of the city, on the South Shore, the North Shore. They no longer live in Taunton. They live in Brockton, and their politics are not here in the city. Their political base, the people they're talking to, the people that they should be engaging are people who actually representing the cities and towns where they now live. So it's the demographics, saints. The demographics are changing, and if you really want to be in the know, elected officials, make sure that when you go to the congregations, that you understand that not everybody in those churches although they're members of the church, they no longer live in the city of Boston. 617-282-0685, 617-282-0685. So, is there going to be a white man or woman, is there going to be a Caucasian joining the ranks of people of color to run for office? Or are the candidates going to say that I would like to run as a white person, as a Caucasian, but this is not my season? That the demographics in Boston have changed. It is a majority city of people of color. I believe that Boston deserves its first black mayor, and so I'm going to sit this one out. I've been told that there are some white candidates who are contemplating, who are trying to figure out whether or not they're going to run for office. But I hope that what we experienced a number of years ago when John Conley and Marty Walsh ran for office, when they ran for office, what happened is that we had so many black people, so many people of color run for office that they canceled each other out. And the final two were two white males. And so we don't know what's about to happen. For example, could a white candidate who has not announced have placed any of the candidates of color into office so that they can come in, cause all of these people of color to go at it with each other, and maybe even bring in another white candidate so that the numbers, the votes can be so split that a white candidate will turn the tables on the black candidates? 617-282-0685. Are you voting in the mayoral election? That's the first question. Second question, do you attend a church in Boston, but you live outside of the city? That would be interesting to hear from you. Do you live outside of the city, but you attend one of the churches in Boston? You know, you have a church by the name of Concord Baptist Church that has their sanctuary in Canton. And my question for them is, this church was a historic black church in the South End. They moved out of the South End, purchased property in Canton. So my question is, how many of the black people who attend that church are Boston residents? Or have they all moved out of Boston and no longer attend the city and no longer live in the city? These are important questions that have to be asked. It's one thing to ask the candidates about their positions, but candidates, do you know who is actually who's actually in these congregations? Because you could waste time going to a church, trying to address the congregation, and then find out that 3/4 of the people in that church live in Brockton, Taunton, in Braintree, in Randolph, in Avon, Sharon. Everything is changing. And my question is Boston going to turn back into a majority city of non-people of color? Are white folk going to dominate the city? Is Roxbury going to be predominantly white residents? Is the South End going to be predominantly white residents? Is Chinatown going to be predominantly white residents? Is Chinatown going to change? Are the demographics there? There are just so many thoughts that I have. and so many questions that I have. And it's important that we have to think these through. Now, I talk to my good friend Ron Bell about this all the time, and he understands the city. He understands the wards, the precincts, who's in the city, and he also has a perspective on how the city is changing. Being a political operative as he is, he talks with more of the candidates than I do, and he has a different perspective on our city and what's happening. He actually has a radio program, not only here on Boston Braves Radio and TV, but he has a radio program in Milton. So again, he knows what I'm talking about. Lauren Ann McLean Britt said, good morning, I agree with what you're saying about the demographics in our city. Churches has changed, and they are predominantly filled with black and people of color, and it's more to an issue of the topics that need to be addressed affect the black community as a whole. And so I agree with that we should have conversations about the issues and needs of the black community that go even beyond what's happening in our city, because we have a national crisis taking place in our country right now with regards to black people and their voting rights being suppressed. That's another topic that we should talk about. And in my opinion, we need to watch out in this city to make sure that the voting or election laws do not change to say that there's no longer going to be any early voting. Can you imagine that it's going to be outlawed or has been outlawed? I don't know if the law has passed, that you can't bring people who are voting, if they're standing in line for 2 or 3 hours, I was told, you can't bring them food or water. That's illegal. That's either illegal now or going to be illegal. The voting laws are changing in the cities and in the states where black people, the Democrats won, and black people were a voting majority. They won. They were able to help their candidates to win elections. So there's so much going on. There's such a major change. And here's the other thing. Not all black people think the same. For example, if you listen to Boston Praise Radio and TV, and you listen to Pastor Daniel Walker, he's a black man, true and blue. But his positions as a black man do not line up all the time to the positions of an average black person that I've engaged with. He appears to be, I don't like these terms, conservative and liberal. I know what they mean, but they may not completely describe a person. So I'm not going to say that Pastor Dan Walker is a conservative. I will say that his position, let's say his position on Donald Trump is different than my position. His position on the new president is different than my position. So I'm only saying that to say that not all black people think the same. So if a candidate thinks that they can come into a church and articulate their positions and think that they understand the mindset of the black people that they're speaking with, again, we're not all monolithic. We do not all think the same. So candidates need to know the congregation that they're in. They need to know and understand what the political posture is of the people in that particular church. And 3, they need to ask, if I was running for office and I came into a church, and if the pastor gave me an opportunity to speak, I would ask the question, how many members of this church live in this neighborhood. And I would say about our church, we used to be a neighborhood church. But we are not a neighborhood church right now. We're a church of men and women who come to this church from different parts of the state. When I was younger and I was attending 12th Baptist Church in Roxbury, I knew one member who would fly in from New York to be at 12th Baptist Church. I knew members who would travel from New Hampshire to come to 12th Baptist Church. So 12th Baptist Church was filled with neighborhood people, but it also had many people who were from out of the city who traveled in just to be a part of the church. And so things are changing. The candidates who are running for office need to understand that. The candidates, campaign managers need to understand that. That means that candidates have to go knocking on people's doors, standing at the Stop and Shop or Stars, going to the churches, will not do it because not all of those people going shopping on Saturdays in certain neighborhoods actually live in those neighborhoods. They might be shopping with a family member who still lives in that neighborhood, but they do not. So know who you're speaking to. Understand who they are, where they live, understand the demographics in our city. It is changing. So a question I would ask you is, do you think that Michelle Wu is going to be an attractive candidate to black folk in Boston? Has Michelle Wu addressed any of the black-related concerns that Siddiqui Cambone, that Ron Bell, that James Hill, that Jamal Crawford, that all of us have been talking about? Has Michelle Wu embraced those concerns and those issues? Also, has John Barrows been effective in his position? Has John Barrows been effective when he was the economic development chief? He was the former economic development chief for the city of Boston. That means that as it relates to the contracts that were given to white contractors over against black contractors, the question is, does that fall at the feet of John Barrows, because he was the economic development officer for the full term that Marty Walsh. Many people blame Marty Walsh for why black contractors were not and still are not receiving their fair share of contracts. But John Barrows worked for Marty Walsh, so and he was the economic development chief. Does it fall at his doorstep? And that's going to hound him throughout his campaign. Why didn't he do more? Or did he try? John Santiago, who's running for office, they say he's a very effective state representative, and he also happens to be a medical doctor. So what we derive from that is that he's a bright man and he serves in a state position. Because he's an elected official, one could look at the bills that he proposed and look at the bills that have or have not passed to determine whether or not he's been effective. Because there are elected officials that look good, are very articulate, and during election time, they'll start knocking on doors. But they have no relationship with the black community at all. And they're senators and state reps. What's up with that? We need to call the candidates out who are running for mayor who are presently in office based on their record. Anissa Asabi George, she has concluded that she is a person of color. I'm not going to touch that right now, but we do need to examine Anissa Asabi George to determine whether or not she has a claim to be a person of color. And we need to check with her voting record as a city councilor. Did she pass the budget? Did she support the mayor's budget? Did she pass any city ordinances that affected black people? That's important for us to assess with her. Michelle Wu, same question, and the same question for Andrea Campbell. Was Andrea Campbell, in the years that she was a city councilor, was she relating and effective in addressing the concerns that we had and still have as black people? Again, when people run for office, all of a sudden, it's like the scales come off of their eyes. All of a sudden, they can see clearer when they're running for office. But when they're in office and you knock on their doors, and one would say to the 1, 2, 3 city councils who are running, what was your position on Nubian Square, the changing of the name? What was your position on the issues that Mamleo brought to the city council? Did you stand with Mamleo on all of the issues that they brought you regarding black and brown police officers? There are just so many questions you can ask. And if the response is a resounding no, then you can conclude that we are not voting, we are not going to mobilize to vote for a candidate who was not effective, would not listen to a thing that we had to say. This changing of the name of Faneuil Hall, it's another issue. It may not be the number one issue for black and brown people in Boston, but it's one of the many issues. And I believe the name should be changed. And I believe there should be more black vendors in Quincy Market in that area. And I want to know what sitting city councilor was able to bring the ball down the court to help the group that is trying to change the name be successful in achieving their goal. Again, be careful. Yes, listen to what the candidates are saying now. But remember, what they're saying now, they're saying because they're running for office, and they're going to try to keep you off step. They're going to respond to your questions based on what they perceive you want them to say. They're going to study you. They're going to study the neighborhoods. They're going to study the issues. And all of a sudden, they're now going to be in favor of many of the concerns that we brought to them that they did not respond to. All of a sudden, they're going to change. Leon Rock says, great, thoughtful questions past the wall about the candidates who are running for mayor. And I think that it's going to be important that we start now, and even now is a little too late. I understand that there are some groups meeting now who are creating questions that they're going to pose to the candidates. And I'm hoping that we're going to have an opportunity as a radio and TV station, as we query, as we ask these candidates questions about their positions. I hope that some of the questions that are being prepared by these other groups, that we'll be able to see some of these questions so that we can utilize these questions in addition to what we're going to create to finally pinpoint which of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, there are 5 candidates There are 5 declared candidates. Do I think that it's only going to be 5? No, I think that there are going to be possibly 3 more. Again, I was told that a white candidate is going to enter the race, but I cannot tell you when they were going to do it. I'm going to have to stop because we have People Power with Priscilla and the BG report coming up, and they have special guests coming in. So I'm going to stop and give you an opportunity to refresh yourself and get ready for the next 2 hours here on Boston Praise Radio and TV. I want to thank all of those who have been listening. I am only getting started on addressing these issues, and I'm hoping that you will stay with us as we prepare for Boston Praise Radio and TV and Boston Black News right here on Boston Praise Radio and TV. Again, coming up at 9 will be the BG Report on Boston Praise Radio and TV.